Hello and welcome to The Pitch, home of the greatest movie ideas on the internet. Today's pitch is for Frozen 3. Frozen 2 is still ticking away at the cinemas, earning money, and I think it's just become the most successful animated movie of all time, which is kind of worrying because it's not even as good as Frozen 1, but there we are. Anyway, it means that Disney are definitely going to make a Frozen 3, and lucky for them, I'm here to tell them how to make it awesome. Let's start with a little bit of context. Have you heard the theory that Frozen and Tangled are in the same universe? The theory basically goes that when Elsa and Anna's parents died in the shipwreck, they were on their way to Rapunzel's wedding. And to back this theory up, you can actually see Rapunzel and Flynn at the beginning of the first Frozen movie. My idea for Frozen 3 is that we're going to embrace that theory and we're going to use it as a central part of the story. The theories actually go even further in that they include the Little Mermaid and Tarzan and also Tiana from the Frog Princess. But we're going to leave those for now, possibly in a future sequel. This time we're just going to focus on adding Rapunzel to Elsa and Anna's story. In Frozen 2, they talked about the 5 elements. We got the idea of Elsa being gifted her magic, but we also see a little fire gecko. So there's a very strong suggestion of the sort of different elements that ancient people would have recognized. We're going to use those 5 elements as a concept to build our story around. There were 5 ancient elements: earth, air, fire, water, and ether. But this is a kids' film, so we're not going to spend time explaining what ether is. Instead, we're going to call it spirit, just like they did in Captain Planet. I'm sure you all remember that cartoon fondly.
Yes! Let our powers combine! Earth! Fire! Wind! What? Heart!
Your powers combined. I am Captain Planet!
We're going to call it spirit, and because essentially it's the same thing anyway, and children are going to find that easier as a concept to grasp. So, who has what power? Well, Elsa can control snow, and she can create ice. So obviously her powers are revolving around water. Rapunzel can heal people. If you remember at the end of Tangled, even after she had her hair cut, she still healed people with her tears. So how does healing fit in with the 5 different elements? Well, we're going to make her be spirit, just because healing doesn't go naturally with earth, air, or fire, and also healing people seems to have that kind of holistic, kind of spiritual element, and it kind of seems to fit in my head. Right, so Elsa is water, Rapunzel is spirit. Let's move on to Anna. Now, admittedly, in the first 2 movies, Anna doesn't have any magical powers, but when they're very young, at the beginning of Frozen 1, the troll says that he will take away any memory of magic that she has from her mind. So we're going to use that as an excuse as to why she hasn't shown any powers before, and during the film we're going to unlock those powers and she's going to develop in that way. So what power will Anna have? She's going to be Earth, just because she's the foundation that these movies are built around. And also the look of her character. She's always wearing greens and browns, and her hair is that kind of browny reddy colour. And so I think Earth really fits her, at least in my head. That leaves fire and wind, and these 2 are going to be our bad guys. They're going to be twin brothers who rule a kingdom far away, who come to Arendelle to try and take over one way or another. Now, on to the story. When we left Frozen 2, Elsa was living in the forest, I presume to the north of Arendelle, although I don't think they ever say that. It's always just been in my head. But anyway, to the north of Arendelle. Fire goes to visit Elsa and he proposes, thinking that that will then make him king of Arendelle, not really understanding what has happened in the recent history. She refuses, obviously, because she's gay, isn't she? Isn't she? I thought that was like a whole thing that Disney were going to do, but then they never did in the second one. I don't know, maybe it's just other people writing about it and I read it somewhere. Anyway, Elsa refuses, Fire is offended, and he immediately gets his soldiers that are travelling with him to attack the forest, and he burns it down. And although Elsa fights back, ultimately she's overpowered because her concern is all of the people around her and trying to make sure they're safe, whereas Fire is just concerned about burning everything down. So they run, and Elsa and some of the wood people that have survived run back to Arendelle. Meanwhile, in Corona, which is the kingdom where Rapunzel lives, she and Flynn are trying to work out why there's this sudden gale blowing in the middle of summer. And just as they start to work out that there's something mysterious afoot, Wind attacks with another group of soldiers, and they annihilate the kingdom. They destroy everything. And again, there's nothing they can do except run away. So Rapunzel and Flynn and anyone else from the kingdom gets on boats and travels to Arendelle to seek safe refuge. Now we have everyone in Arendelle and we can start playing around with our characters. We'll get some interesting little matchups. Kristoff and Flynn will either bond very well or be slightly intimidated by each other. You'll have Sven the reindeer and Maximus the horse from Tangled, and they again will have an interesting dynamic. Either, I would imagine from their characters, Maximus will be very serious, trying to help the humans out, while Sven will want to play and eat carrots together. Either way, we could have quite a lot of humour and play with those ideas quite a lot. The three girls obviously realise that they're going to be attacked both by fire from one direction and wind from the other. So they go to the trolls to seek help, and the trolls help them unlock otherwise hitherto unknown elements to their powers. That, of course, means that Rapunzel will become more strong and more able to heal people at will without having to worry about crying. And also Elsa will be able to adapt slightly from just being snow and cold and ice to actually just being able to control all water. And most importantly, Anna, who needs to have the biggest arc, I think, will develop her powers slowly, realizing the different things she could do with controlling the element of earth. While the girls are away trying to make sure that they're completely ready for the imminent attack, Sven, Maximus, Olaf, Marshmallow, let's bring him back because it's kind of cool, that giant snow monster, Flynn and Kristoff start preparing the kingdom and getting the army ready to try and hold off the soldiers that are going to be attacking. When the armies led by Wind and Fire start to descend upon Arendelle, they do their best to fight them off, they do their best to save the kingdom, but we make it very clear that they won't be able to hold them off forever. To emphasize this point, Fire is going to kill Marshmallow, and Wind is going to drive back the entire Arendelle army. The stronger we make both Fire and Wind look, and the more things that we allow them to achieve, the more of a threat they seem, and so therefore more compelling the story. Whilst Wind is driving back the army, Kristoff attacks and Wind injures him. And just as it's looking like Fire and Wind are going to just completely crush everyone and destroy Arendelle, that's when our three heroines and the trolls arrive back to save the day. So, now they all fight. Rapunzel heals Kristoff. Anna uses earth to protect herself from the wind. And Elsa, of course, fights fire. The battle goes back and forth. The trolls try to help the army to stop the evil soldiers from getting into the town. There's small victories and losses on both sides. It looks like it could be going either way, but then Fire and Wind start to just edge slowly ahead, and they start to take more control of the battlefield, and it looks like they're about to win when Rapunzel steps up and she uses her spirit powers to increase everybody's strength and drive and determination. And when the three girls all bond and work together properly, that's when they finally defeat both fire and wind. I think this idea will work because it's got those cool sort of epic elements that it seems to fit the style of the story generally, but it's also playing with the themes that were very much there in the 3 previous films that I've used as reference material to inspire this story. Well, that's my pitch. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more of the greatest movie ideas on the internet.